order. Do we have roll call, please?
Iverson.
Here.
Stotzinger.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Gallup.
Here.
Gernert.
Here.
Gotsky.
What?
Sorensen.
Yeah, here.
Split. Here. I just heard your mic move. I thought it was him.
Oh,
All right, we have a quorum.
One second.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am Reverend Jeffrey Dodson, pastor at First Congregational Church in Ripon. Please be with me in the spirit of prayer this evening. Holy One, thank you for the privilege for each of us to be here tonight. I ask you to bless our gathering this evening as we come together in service to the city of Ripon. Help us to bless one another and to celebrate the diversity of the people who come together to work toward a greater good. I lift up in prayer tonight our EMS service members and those who work to help heal our community and watch out for those who are on the road and in our homes. I lift up in prayer tonight as well our remembering of Memorial Day this coming weekend and the meaning it holds for each of us each day throughout the year. I pray for the memory of those who have died in service to our country, who have fought for the peace of this world, defended the dignity of the vulnerable, and gave of their very being for the freedoms we hold. May our lives honor their sacrifices, and may our community defend and protect their families. Remind us to be thoughtful in word and deed, that they might represent our acknowledgement of privilege and responsibility that we have in living in this country. Be with us all as we seek to ever be a people and a place that promotes life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Guide our work and watch over the city we love, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. If I could get a motion to approve tonight's agenda with some flexibility, our item number 5, Fond du Lac County United Way. The speaker is running a little late, so we may have to push that to later in the meeting. So as soon as she's able, we'll put her in the next thing.
Motion to approve with flexibility.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Moved by Howard, seconded by Jolene. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. There's no one signed up for public comment. So we'll move into our first agenda item, which is open outdoor container entertainment event permit applications for Ripon Main Street and the Ripon Summer Concert Series. This is one application for, looks like 6 different dates. You had an updated application on your table. The one that was sent out with the packet only had the first date on it.
The only change are the dates.
Yes.
He just added the dates. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
And moved by David, seconded by Doug.
I wanted to know who will be doing the ID checks or wristbands.
Does not hear that Craig is here this evening.
I think the unfortunate thing about not having item 5 now is Craig is not here. He was planning on being here. I'm not certain how they operate that aspect of it, but certainly I think during the event, they ID people at the, they have temporary Class B license with bartenders and things of that nature.
Best practices is not to have the bartenders doing the IDs and the wristbanding. It's best to have a separate table that is located away from the bar. And that would be my concern, is that this is not a best practice. We hold a Ripon Fest to that standard.
Well, past policy from my time there, what they do have people under the tent. There's not a booth, but they won't serve unless they have a wristband, and the people that have the wristbands are searching people out without them.
So they're
and
not the
checking.
bartenders.
there, not the bartender.
that's-
I've
that
never
answers
seen a
my-
bartender do that.
Okay.
It's always been, and Craig's one of the ones that does it, but
Okay.
there's several people doing that, and that's been past practice.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the open outdoor container entertainment event permit application, which I need a shorter title for that, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That is approved. All right, next item is a rezoning request for formerly N8747 Douglas Street. This was annexed into the city, has a new address of, is it 1012 Douglas? It's in the 1000 block of Douglas Street. This was approved by the Plan Commission last week and is recommending the council approve as well.
Motion to approve the rezoning request.
Been moved by Howard, seconded by Ellen.
Generous.
Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the rezoning request, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
Would you like to go to the United one?
What's that?
Would you like to go to the United?
Oh, sure. Looks like Amber is here, so we'll come back to that item. She's here from Fond du Lac County United Way. If you'd like to step forward.
Just come right up to right over here. Sounds great. Yeah, good to see you. I can pass this on. Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you so much. This as well. Just got some little goodies here for you. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear it okay if close enough? Okay. So I wanted to take the opportunity to come here tonight as we are out talking about the work that we do, and I've actually been here before, but probably with a new group, I would imagine. It's been a number of years, to talk about the work of the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center. And I figured the time was appropriate now, as we have recently come together with Ripon, as you had mentioned, the Fond du Lac County United Way, and we're really excited to be able to extend our offerings and the various opportunities into the city of Ripon. So I'm pleased to be here and very excited as well. So what a Disaster Volunteer Reception Center is, and you all are receiving the applications for that, is a longtime partnership with the Fond du Lac County Emergency Management as well as Fond du Lac County the Fond du Lac County Public Health Department. So in the event of a natural disaster, and we know that we are coming up into June, July, and August, those are our most predominantly, natural disaster zones, our months rather, for tornadoes in particular. We want to, create some awareness about what the Disaster Volunteer Reception can offer to communities in the event of these natural disasters. So the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center would essentially activate under the authority of emergency management, right? We take all of our orders from them, so to speak. And we would activate in a community or a nearby community as to where the incident occurred. So if you remember, back in it was the year before COVID, I think it was 2018, we had large flooding in the city of Fond du Lac, where our river flooded over, and we had ice shoves and went into areas that, into communities where folks' homes were actually about 5 to 6 feet underwater.
The lift stations failed too.
And that as well, yes. So we didn't do any of our neighbors, we didn't help our neighbors in that situation. But what we did
did was we activated, in partnership again with Emergency Management and Fond du Lac Public Health Department, we activated our Disaster Volunteer Reception Center because people in these situations are very altruistic and they want to be able to help and provide some type of assistance. So the goal really of a Disaster Volunteer Reception Center is to help manage spontaneous volunteers. So we were activated, and what we did is we worked with the media and then 211. You all each have a card for 211. That's the blue little postcard or bookmark looking card as well. So what we did was we basically worked with communications, and we said, if you want to help, don't call emergency management, don't go to your municipalities, reach out to United Way, and we will then get you vetted out through the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center. And actually that year we had the pleasure of working with Team Rubicon. So those of you who might know Team Rubicon, they are a group of folks who are former and some current veterans, as well as folks who have served as like EMTs and paramedics and firemen and police personnel, et cetera. So they activate, they're 100,000 strong in the United States. About 10% of their group activates to situations like this, and they were actually able to help with the muck outs. They have sawyers on staff, so they were able to help with cutting trees and clearing ways and things like this. But for the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center, they actually were able to help train the spontaneous volunteers that came out, so that we could really make sure that folks that were going into situations were trained, they were vetted, they did background checks. So the application that I've actually shared with you is an example of what one of our volunteers would fill out. And then I also just wanted to create some awareness that Fondy Volunteers, you can see it kind of under the area here. Fondy Volunteers is a website which essentially serves as an online volunteer center for our county. And if you're interested in, or you know somebody that might be interested in helping us with our Disaster Volunteer Reception Center, they can actually go and sign up at Fondy Volunteers. And I just want to reinforce that the volunteers, so if you're thinking, would this be for me? Is this a good opportunity? If I'm thinking of somebody, these would not actually be the folks that would be going out. These would not be the spontaneous volunteers. These would be the folks that would be, doing the background checks, that would be actually in the actual emergency or the EOC that is run by the Disaster Volunteers Reception Center. So anybody can do this. We've got lots of opportunities for training, and we actually have something that we're looking at coming up at American Legion in the city of Fond du Lac in August, where we'll be doing an in-time training opportunity for the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center, and also probably doing some type of table tent around a human-made disaster, as we know that things of that nature are happening, much more often. So how we would work with emergency management and public health in that event, in addition to a natural disaster as well. So just wanted again to create some awareness. Certainly we would love to be able to work with the city of Ripon to establish where a Disaster Volunteer Reception Center could possibly pop up in the event we would have that. It doesn't take a lot. Oftentimes they're in communities like in Oakfield, for example. We have a relationship with the Community Village Center, and they share that with the library, right? So internet, bathroom, usually a kitchen, because we want to make sure our volunteers are fed and well taken care of. Certainly an area that has parking that is available as spontaneous volunteers would be coming into the Disaster Volunteer Reception Center, and then essentially going out into the community that was impacted by the disaster. So that in a nutshell, lots more technical details, but I'll spare you all those in the event of time. But any questions that come to mind?
Hi, first of all, Amber, it's good to see you. As you know, I run a food pantry in Fond du Lac, and you've been a huge resource for me and the work in Fond du Lac. I also know that you work hand in hand with United Way of Ripon. Can you talk a little bit more about that strong relationship and maybe how that would work here? And then also, if folks at home were interested in this application that I am now looking at, would you foresee that maybe this is on your website and they could go on here, or how would someone get a hold of that?
So they could actually go, Jolene, great questions. They could go, just to answer the second question about how someone could get interested, and then also receive the information about the training that I alluded to that will occur at American Legion in August. They can just go right to fondyvolunteers.org and actually sign up. And then what we do is we'll send out a communication when that date is determined. determined, and just to, verify all the details, they'll get an email about that, actually. And then they'll get any other information, through kind of a good old phone system. I'll call you and somebody will call you, so we'll activate and mobilize however many volunteers are needed at that time. We would obviously keep all the contact information, et cetera. And we probably would do like a basic orientation when somebody would sign up. To your first question, we on May 1, we announced that we were going to be working together with Ripon and becoming a one county united way. So we're certainly open to ways to collaborate and strengthen the connection, and really look to United Way to say what can we do to strengthen that relationship, but also bring more opportunities like this to the city of Ripon. There are many things we do with our partnership with 211, and then those little cards as well, Julian, if you could just distribute those at some time. Have information about the Wisconsin Addiction Helpline, which is run by United Way Wisconsin, and all of the resources throughout the county are populated into that. So if somebody were to be reaching out for resources, they could find those at both of those, at 211, but asking specifically for those various resources. So we're certainly open to it and look forward to you all reaching out. I can actually leave a couple of my cards behind. Jeff Pullman Becker, who many of you may know, was actually going to join me tonight and kind of took sick. So he is at home and decided to stay his distance. But certainly if anybody has any questions, he lives here and could be reached out to directly. So yeah, thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amber. Our next item is the resolution amending the City of Ripon Employee Handbook. Do we want to start with a discussion on the handbook itself, unless we want to go right into a motion?
I was going to make a motion and we can discuss it after it's on the floor, unless Adam needs to.
I don't have to do anything.
Okay. I move we amend the City of Ripon Employee Handbook as presented.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Ellen, seconded by Doug. Any discussion? David?
Let's go to, start with 604, I guess, with the weekends. Let's see, what is it, about 35?
Page 35.
Yeah. Well, we can start, it's work schedules. So we're looking at doing, it's saying basically the work week is the work week. You can, right now you have overtime. We have a set schedule, whatever it is, 7 to 3:30. And any time before that and any time after that is time and a half. So we're taking all that away on this, except you go down to 609. And then it's a little convoluted for me, but now it's saying that all day Saturday and Sunday's time and a half, correct?
Correct.
Is how we're doing that now. So that's taken a pretty good hit for the Public Works and Water Department. And I guess I'm looking, I like, the other thing that they're giving up is, when you use vacation or sick time, it's no longer time and a half. So, which I don't really have a problem with that one. But if we were to I would like to see a few things changed. If you go back to 605, it's showing with the on-call status. I would like to see and it's not on here, it would be a separate thing, but I would like to see the Public Works the same as the Water and Sewer Department as far as getting paid the same for their week of on-call. And I would also like to see it change the 1 hour call-in pay, you know, a 1 hour minimum, that's F. We're taking an hour away. I would like to see that change back to 2 hours. I just believe that we're taking too much away, and we should give a little bit.
Okay, so to your first point about leveling the Public Works and Department of Waters, or the two water departments'
Yeah.
on-call pay.
I believe it's $190 for water and sewer, and then like 100 or 90 for Public Works.
Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be done with the pay schedule,
Yeah,
which
that
is
would be on
outside of this.
pay schedule and the exact amounts. We just were discussing this. For the on-call for each is, 162.89 for water and wastewater, 95.67 for Department of Public Works. Water and wastewater have a history of having the on-call schedule. There's one person on call every week. They are required to work the weekends when they're on the on-call schedule. In terms of 604 in the work schedule, this simplifies the work schedule to be uniform across every department. The previous handbook has every department carved out different areas, different times, specifying when they get paid time and a half, when they don't. So for example, there were carve-outs in there for Public Works to get time and a half, not outside of their work hour, but between the hours of 10 o'clock to 6 in the morning. Okay, so it wasn't every hour outside of the work hour, it was only that carved out area, or over 8 hours in a workday. On the vice versa, wastewater and water had carve-outs for getting paid time or double time on weekends, so on and so forth. So you had a lot of different competing schedules and different variable pay rates that were not uniform and led to a lot of problems across departments implementing schedules, as well as understanding when things are overtime, when things are premium pay, so on and so forth. So the wastewater has always had a higher rate because it's always adjusted up with the rate of the wage increase for the year. So theirs has gone forward faster over a longer period of time. Public Works started the practice of putting people on call only a few years ago. Generally speaking, it's 3 or 4 individuals only during the winter. And that rate has, since the past few years, gone up as time goes on as well with the rate of pay increase. If you break it down to if they're not called in, Public Works, water and wastewater at $162 if they don't get called in. It's an extra $4 per hour for that week. Okay, if they get called in, it's $1.27 per hour when they're not working. That's a pretty good rate, okay? DPW, the math, I believe it's 75 cents for not on call and an extra $2.25 per hour when they're on call for a 40-hour work week. Those numbers are rather generous compared to other communities that are paying 50 cents on-call pay. I certainly understand the idea of moving the DPW up, but there are reasons why there's one person on call for water and wastewater. There's 3 or 4 on call for this. So we have to be careful about where we go with this. We've started conversations with the Public Works Director, payroll, so on and so forth, about what we present coming forward as a uniform payment for being on call.
I would just like to see it get a little closer. It's a little out of whack for what, you know, you're basically someone's giving up every night and a weekend. I mean, either one. So, you know, skill set, whatever, may be different, the pay may be different, but in that particular case, they're both doing the exact same thing, which is waiting to get called in, maybe, which means having to stay in town, you know, no drinking, no whatever. So it would just be nice if it could be closer. And taking away the 2 hours for one to come in, to me, that's asking a lot for anyone. I mean, I've done that before where I would come in and it's not even worth the 2 hour minimum, much less a 1 hour minimum to come in, and you're doing something that's going to pay great dividends for the city, depending on what it is, especially water department coming in and resetting whatever to make sure we have water, and it would work that way with Public Works too. I would just like to see that not be taken away, because there's enough being taken away, I believe. It's just less being taken away.
So as I mentioned, the rate for on-call for the week, the premium would be a separate discussion.
Yes.
Would you like to make an official amendment on the number of hours?
Yes.
You would need to make an amendment, a motion for an
Yeah, for
amendment.
605F, 2-hour call-in pay. That would be the one thing I would like to see changed here.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Is he talking about under F?
Under F,
Yes.
so
Okay.
605F, the amendment would be changing 1 hour to 2 hours.
I didn't hear an amendment, you just said I wanted to.
He's proposing the amendment, we're looking for a second if there is one.
Change 605F from 1 hour back to 2 hours, which is what it is now.
I'll second if anybody can hear me.
Thank you, Jonathan. So the amendment is proposed by David, seconded by Jonathan. Discussion on the amendment. Jolene?
I hope that I want all city workers to know that I really stand on their side and I appreciate all that they do. And so I hope that folks know that they can come to me with any concerns because our city is made better because of our strong city workers. I haven't had anyone contact me with a concern about this that we did talk about last time. This was a discussion item, and because it's still, now we did keep it at 1 hour, this proposal. I guess my question, and to double check, it sounded like when this change was brought forth, that all department heads did approve of this. So the department heads of water, as well as Department of Public Works, wastewater, I guess maybe it would help me to understand, because I hear what my colleague is saying, and yet what I'm saying is I haven't had anyone contact me saying that they were concerned. And my assumption is our department heads who have to take care of the health and well-being of their departments would know this issue at closest. And what did that process look like of getting their approval of these changes?
I think it's been a discussion and an ongoing dialogue back and forth at the committee level about a balancing act, right? So we're paying on call at a rate that is, generally speaking, higher than the average on-call rate already. We are then, when somebody gets called in, paying for 2 hours of time. So on top of, depending on the old handbook, you could be paying that on-call pay, paying minimum 2 hours, and getting into paying overtime. So you're essentially tripling up the amount of pay to respond to a call, right? So this was just an effort to scale back, say, okay, if the on-call pay is going to remain at this level, at this, then the response goes from 2 hours to 1 hour, right? So it's a balancing act between that. Ultimately, the bigger concern from the staff was not moving from 2 hours to 1 hour. It was more about how it's expected that they're on call to come. So we put in additional language there to offset that. Certainly, part of it is taking away from 1 to 2, from 2 to 1. There wasn't anybody just upset, I would say, by that. I didn't get that impression, but at the end of the day, we're talking an hour, and how often does this occur? Frankly, very minimal, I would say. Most things generally do last more than an hour or two. Most snow removal responses, all of those things when people on call. So we would probably go beyond that. I also don't want it to become a detriment for calling people in, that it becomes, if it is a 15-minute job, that we are now paying somebody on call and for 2 hours, because it becomes too costly to bring somebody in. So that was the balancing act that was done in this entire handbook, but certainly it's an hour. It's an hour. So
In defense of keeping it at 2 hours, at least on weeknights, that those 2 hours would be paid at straight time, not time and a half like they have been. So that's part of a balance. And if it's early enough in the week, if they come in, they get paid their 2 hours, whether it's a 5-minute job or an hour and a half, hour 45-minute job, the department head could ask that individual to take 2 hours off on Friday to keep it at the 40. And like you said, Public Works almost never comes in for a short on-call reason. So it really comes down to the water or wastewater. And I do know that sometimes they are in for 5 minutes to reset a system. So I personally don't see it being a terribly expensive burden on the city if we left it at 2 hours. That being said, most of the workers are always in for more than the 2 hours, so it's not going to affect them much either, so.
Well, also, if you look at, it's exactly what you said. If you're now having to pay 2 hours, if you're less likely to call someone in, it's not an emergency anyway. Why are you calling them in? They shouldn't even be here. It's too much of it's just a burden on the person to wake up at 2 in the morning and come in and do something. It's just not asking too much to make sure that they really need to come in and that they get paid for it. And I don't think it's too much to ask to pay 2 hours for a 10-minute job because you're going to be awake probably half the night. It really messes up your day. And I've had several people not happy with the change that have talked to me. And it's not that big a burden on the city. Because like you say, most of the time you're going to stay longer than that. It's another thing we're taking away, and we're taking away a lot.
Jolene?
Well, I would, as just a follow-up to my question as to how department heads were involved. I mean, I hate to put them on the spot, but I know we have someone who this affects. I guess it's good to know that some people contacted you. I'm going by, this was proposed, it sounds like department heads were a part of the decision. I've had no one contact me saying that they were not happy. If my colleagues have, I would encourage you to speak up so I can help use that in my decision. But otherwise, I mean, are we allowed to ask the department head, can we confirm that this is something that you sort of agreed to? And that you don't think will negatively, or maybe if you do you have any concerns for your department?
I guess when we were discussing this as it was going forward, it was low on our list of concerns as a department. Most fixes, or some fixes, are 10-minute fixes or something like that as well too. We had other things that I needed to take a harder stand on, I guess. So this was something that we could cave on. As far as my staff, I don't really see it as too upsetting. But it would be a negative because I guess, probably half the calls are probably less than 2 hours, I would say.
And currently we are at 2 hours for guaranteed.
Thank you.
Terry?
As a employee who's been on call before, I do have to say I can relate to what Dave has been saying. When you get called in, it is very disruptive, whether it's for a 5-minute job or not.
Anyone else? John?
I think it brings it more in line with, and I'm just going to say Alliant Energy. When they're on call, I can't say for a fact that is what the minimum is, but I know it's higher than a 1 hour minimum pay. So I think it does bring it up a little bit for our employees.
Just a guess, but depending on community, it's either 4 or 8 hours.
Okay, yeah. I know, it's quite generous, yeah.
Any further discussion on the amendment? So the amendment is on section 605F, changing the 1 hour call-in pay to a 2 hour guaranteed call-in pay.
I have one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
When are we able to review this again? At any time someone would want to, just like a typical ordinance that a council member could bring it up to review. I mean, it would be typical, right?
You could. We're trying to resolve as much of this now because to avoid having to bring it back, but it could always be brought back.
Okay.
Typically, you could review every year. It would be not efficient to willy-nilly go at the employee handbook whenever someone felt like it or whenever employees were complaining. So I think it's a reasonable expectation to review on an annual basis.
And just a reminder that every time we change the handbook, every city employee should have the opportunity to read it and re-sign it. So it does disrupt the workplace as well every time we change it.
Roll call.
So, roll call vote on the amendment of 605F, changing the minimum call-in time to 2 hours. Adam?
Iverson,
Yes.
Schatzinger,
Yes?
Hanson,
Yes.
Gallops,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Skotsky,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Split.
Yes.
Motion
That's
carries.
unanimous. All right. Did you have any other amendments you were looking for?
I'm good. I'll take that one.
Okay. Anyone else? John?
I have a question on 607, the overtime. The last paragraph is, at the discretion of the city administrator and/or supervisor, they may be sent home. When, do we have a set time? Do we have like an overtime budget? And when we hit that overtime budget, that's when we're gonna start sending people home early? Or is it
No.
gonna be at any time we're gonna send them home early?
I think it's a balancing act, and as you can see there, kind of gives an example, but certainly, you know, it's not going to be a situation in the middle of winter where there's snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm that we're sending people home early. If there's work to be done and there's a budget, you know, nobody's ever said that you can't exceed the overtime budget to make sure the snow's cleared, right? So it's a balancing act to just say, you know, if there's, you know, an example of like a big project we have going on or something, or a small emergency, a small windstorm, and on a day where, you know, Monday, say you got to work 10 hours, you know, yeah, come Friday, we could say go home after 6 or whatever that may be. So I think that's really, you know, when there's not that work to be done, when the job is done and there's no more to do, certainly we don't want to just continue to pay somebody to show up when there's not much going on, right? And you maximize the staff during the hours you need them to respond to something. So ultimately, you know, it's just a balancing act to stay on budget. That's part of it. But ultimately, the conversations we've had with department heads has not been to somehow limit or cut somebody's hours at some point. It's more or less to just provide that flexibility in the event that there's a busy day or a busy period.
Okay, because I did get some concerns about that, cutting the overtime, because some people love overtime. You know, so there was some concerns about that.
And that's a generational thing. As we were working on crafting the handbook, we were looking at accommodating current employees, but also the recruitment and the retention of a younger workforce, and that generation has a different set of values, and it's not necessarily overtime, it is flexibility in hours. And so if we want to attract and retain that talent, that this is a move in that direction.
Okay.
Any further questions or discussion on the handbook?
I got one more. Social media, 710. All right, if you go to the second paragraph, starts talking about personal posts. Is this like, are you talking about from their own computer and what they do After hours?
Yes. If it's a post that is detrimental to the city, it will be taken into consideration.
Okay, so I didn't really read it that way. It's, I can't even catch it now. There was, I guess it's a little, it's just saying making negative comments. How do we decide what a negative comment is if it's not, you know, here it could not, it's not saying a negative comment on the city or personnel of the city.
The way I read this, which hopefully is its intent, is we would not want any of our city staff to be offensive or abusive to anyone in public. And at the same time, we don't want them to be abusive to people from their own personal platforms. They are a city employee, it does reflect poorly upon us because we are hiring that type of person. So we want them to be respectful at all times, not just when they're at work.
Okay. So it's not so much an opinion thing. I mean, it's.
No, I mean,
they're going to have to
entitled
really.
their own political opinions and how they feel about things, but we don't want them to be abusive.
Okay.
Pushing them forward. I mean, speak your mind, but don't be abusive to people.
I kind of took that as we've all read about that person who makes fun of that racial group in public, and then it turns out they were a realtor or they were a vice president of some company, and then comes back and bites them hard because they lose their job because that company does not want that kind of publicity. They don't want to be known of that. They'll lose your job. That, I think, is what this is about. If you're like, well, I don't think that, I think we should be doing X, we should be replacing our plow trucks more, and I think that, you know, we should have have an extra holiday or something for the city. I think that's something totally different. You're being respectful, you're just voicing your opinion. If you think, I think we should be making the manhole covers pink or something, for whatever reason. I mean, that's fine, but making fun of somebody, putting down somebody, I think that is something that, I don't know too many companies would really tolerate that. I don't think too many municipalities want that kind of bad publicity. If, you know, Mr. X goes over and yells and screams at the neighborhood kids and hoses them with a water hose and they're working for the city. I don't think we want that. But I think that's what this is aimed at. So post your own opinions about national politics on there all you want, but let's, you know, keep it civil.
Certainly, we aren't hunting for anything. It is merely also an awareness piece for our employees to understand that, yes, you know, there have been cases, whether it's police officers or public works employees or even city administrators, where they get on social media and comment on things, and it is a poor reflection on their employer, their profession. So just bringing awareness to that, you know, those things have happened and it has resulted in job loss, is very important in the day and age we are in. Certainly, not trying to hunt anything down or anything. That is not the intention of it. We are not scouring people's Facebook pages or anything like that looking for anything. It's mostly an awareness piece and just trying to protect the city and the employee from the world we are in today with social media.
Yep. Okay, good with that.
Jonathan, did you have a question?
Yeah, if there's no other comments and anything else, I'll jump in. 705, I was able to voice it last time, my phone died. Second bullet point of 705, I just disagree with the extent that we have smoking, vaping, and tobacco use on city property. I understand the logic behind it, and I understand the reasoning to not allow smoking or vaping in vehicles, in city buildings, in park shelters. I disagree with having tobacco use just called out broadly to encompass, spitlets or chewing tobacco. And I would disagree with the while working sub-bullet at the end to say that, while you were on duty outside of a building, you wouldn't be allowed to smoke, or while you were in a vehicle, you couldn't use chewing tobacco because it's not detrimental to the vehicle or the longevity of it. So that's my comment.
Did everyone understand him?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I guess as a follow-up to that, it says while working. The reality is, as much as I don't want people to smoke and I don't want to be in a public place where I am exposed to smoke that could be harmful to me or my loved ones, people are smoking. I do know this. And would that break that we have of that 15 minutes, would that cover if someone needed a smoke during the day? Could they be covered under that 15-minute break?
Their break period is their time. That is not while working.
But at the same time, we don't want them to take their break in a city vehicle and smoke in the vehicle. Best practice would be to find a place out of the way, like if you're at the Public Works garage, just go off to a corner of the facility, outside, of course, and do that. But part of this was brought to our attention that some city personnel were working downtown, and while working they were smoking, and just appeared unprofessional and possibly unsafe depending on what they were operating. So that's that, and the fact that we have new vehicles and we want to make them last as long as possible is where that particular bullet point came from.
I mean, I guess I would just add that I don't have a particular amendment to this. Again, I don't think it's healthy, and I want to encourage people to stop smoking or vaping or tobacco use. But I guess I'll go back to that city department heads have approved this, because I also don't want something on the books where people are just turning the other way and then it's not enforced, because then there's no point of it. So I guess my question would be, do we feel like this is enforceable? And if there would be an amendment to make it actually enforceable and to be safer and more professional, I would be for that. I just don't have...
This is a long-standing issue in this community, in particular departments, that we believe that this language will help solidify the behaviors that are expected.
And this being in the employee handbook instantly makes it enforceable with the standard warning write-up system.
Ultimately, it's up to the city administrator to ensure that the department heads are doing their jobs, and this would be a part of their job. Does that help, Jolene?
Sure. The point is if we have people that are addicted to this, and department heads don't feel like they can enforce it, then I feel like it is detrimental to have something that is not enforceable. But of course, I understand legally it is up to our city administrator to enforce something. You know, I don't know if adding you can smoke in designated areas. I guess clearly that could be off grounds. But they're not really supposed to be off grounds when you're working during the day. But that's where I guess I question about, they do have their 15-minute time.
Yes.
So that sounds like there is that time. Because someone who's addicted, I also couldn't imagine that for their full 8-hour time to ask them to not smoke would not be doable. However, they have lunch and they have a 15-minute break, right?
As an employer, I have done some of my own studies that the average smoke break is between 7 and 12 minutes, and some employees, I'm not saying our city employees do, but some employees do abuse that and take a smoke break every hour or two and end up working a whole lot less than their colleagues. Like I said, I'm not saying that was city employees, that was on my own personal business that I've did that calculation. And we as a city are trying to promote professionalism amongst all of our staff.
And wellness.
and wellness.
So again, in principle, it would mean that someone would have to get in their own vehicle, drive off city property, smoke, and then come back in their 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, and we have areas where we have areas already with picnic tables and areas where people can go.
Well, see, that's my question, because here it
It's
says,
not on city, it's like right over here, there's a picnic table. That's not on city property, it's in a right of way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Okay.
there's areas we will accommodate this. If somebody goes in their personal vehicle while on city property, we're not going to sit here and say, because it's technically in their own property, there's breaks, there's areas, we will do what we can and have done a lot to accommodate that. The intention here is really to keep it off of city property, around employees, around other staff members, and on city property because of, frankly, poor behaviors in the past.
So the smoking's still going to be allowed?
Yeah, nobody's saying you can't smoke or.
Okay, but it's, I guess, it's like you were saying, maybe put in there in designated areas, and that would be a designated area instead of, because it really looks like.
I guess I would
yeah.
I'd still like to make a motion that the tobacco use part be removed to allow for chewing tobacco or spitless chewing tobacco.
So is that a motion for an amendment?
Yes, please.
So the motion is to remove the chewing tobacco?
Tobacco use.
Or
No, tobacco
remove tobacco
use.
use. Is there a second to that motion?
Well, it doesn't say chewing, it just says tobacco.
Well, the motion is to
wants to
remove
remove
the
that
words tobacco use.
So it would read smoking, vaping on city property.
Hearing no second, that motion for amendment is not successful.
I would offer an amendment for in designated areas. However, what Adam had said is that, for example, a right-of-way is not necessarily on city property, so it would not make a difference anyways.
Because the city is not, the designated area is not city property, so we can't technically designate it as a smoking area.
So, okay. Can I move to a different area?
Sure.
I had a question. I would like clarification on 711, political activity, page 55. The last sentence of the first paragraph. So the first part of the paragraph, I understand where, during working hours, office hours, or public buildings, not to, do anything sort of politically related. But then the last sentence of that first paragraph says, employees shall not use their office or position for the political enhancement of any individual or group. My guess is common sense would rule, but here's an example that I'm thinking of, for example. So I was grateful to support the American Legion's pork chop dinner yesterday, and I was looking online for something on social media about this event. I actually didn't find something like an event. However, I would have imagined if I did, I would have used my City of Ripon Facebook page that I have, and I would have liked it. I probably would have shared it. Now that would be a group. I mean, this is a political enhancement of any individual or group. Veterans would be considered a group, perhaps. And now I would be using my Facebook page, my position of city council, to support veterans. And under this, am I reading that technically? Again, that's making something that I would assume common sense wise. That's not why this is written.
Let me pose this to Lud. Would that be technically political enhancement of that group?
Yeah, I think you're just recognizing it's a group and making your own personal comment. You're not saying everybody get out there and do it because this is the only way. This is the way. Everybody should be doing this. That's more of an enhancement concept.
My read on this would be if you used that Facebook post to promote say some group was trying to get a certain ordinance passed, and you use your Facebook post to support that effort, that would be political enhancement. But just recognizing that they're having an event is not an enhancement.
So yes, it does, and it gets hard, right? We all see posts, right, lots of Ripon, and if I, as a city, I'm a city employee, right?
It can be a fine
If I happen to like
line.
a post, yikes.
I think this is going this is really intended for employees to ensure that they're not using their paid hours or their office or their position to push forward the political agenda of a group or organization. So I shouldn't be sitting here working for a politician, and working on, crafting a bill for them that they want to pass on. That's not productive to my position or the community. You can go varying levels with this, but the intention really is just, not creating that conflict of interest or creating an aura that you are favoring one political agenda or individual or situation over another.
Would there be a reason why we would want to say during working hours, or again, like we did here, during?
It's the first sentence.
But the last sentence seems divorced from that first sentence, is my point. That's my concern.
Oh, I see. I mean, but it's not. I mean, it's, the assumption of the paragraph is you don't do this while at work.
So you could during your personal hours?
No.
I didn't read it that way, but is that the clarification here?
But it's also using your office.
Yeah, exactly.
Using your platform. So there are some, like my position, I have a code of ethics that I have in my profession, right? There's trainings and things that go on there that I have a standard that I set myself to based on that code of ethics and my profession has set for me. Because personally, I'm a city administrator. It's very hard to I have that hat on all the time. So if I go and I say, this or do that, whatever, it's always with that mindset that I am the city administrator. And so you won't see me be, protesting, or you won't see, it's because that political neutrality and is incredibly important to my profession and my ability to do my job. So that's just me. Other department heads have different, opinions on that, but generally speaking, it's not meant to get in the way of someone supporting a candidate, for example, personally, but professionally at work, we do not tolerate, working for one side, right?
But again, you're saying professionally at work, I get that. I'm thinking of, so let's say there's an event to support something, and if I myself show up, I can't walk away from the fact that I am.
But this isn't intended for you as, it's for city employees.
Aren't we considered city employees?
No, you're an elected official.
Well, we're elected, okay.
You have a completely different.
No, this has got nothing to do with the council or the mayor as an elected.
You have completely
You
different.
got your own code of ethics.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And some of these things are not that different, but you would want to consult
Okay, thank you.
your own code of ethics.
Thank you for that clarification.
Good.
Some of these do overlap.
Like Naomi can't go out as a clerk and support candidates. Adam can't.
But I could.
No, but that's another story.
That's a different. Consult the ethics.
Not as a counselor.
It kind of brings up my question, and it's under that comment guideline in 710. The second one is comments in support of or opposition to political campaigns or ballot measures. So you're saying a public works employee can't go on Facebook and say, I support X running for an office? Is that what that means?
Yeah, essentially, yes. I think on a local level, we would advise against our employees going out and stumping for a mayor or a council member. That is not a productive way.
So you're saying local, but they could do a national or a presidential?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess I defer to Lud on whether we have to get into, you know, how far you take that, but,
I can definitely see the local, that there'd be,
Yeah, I think the intent again is city, stay in your lane. It's a stay in your lane kind of thing. Putting a poster out on your lawn to support a political candidate doesn't put you in the middle of social media, put you into commentary. It simply says, I support that candidate. Period.
but they still can't put say a Facebook post out.
They would be
Favor
careful
of-
in making the Facebook post to argue their position. That's the fine line that runs through
Okay.
here. Yeah, it's one thing to say, I'm going to put a sign out. That doesn't mean I'm going to actively campaign and get on the internet and say, I'm a city garage worker and I think that everybody should be supporting so-and-so because so-and-so believes such and such. Those are the kind of lines that follow. But just, again, some of this is common sense, and it's also there to suggest, think before you go ahead. And putting a yard sign out for a candidate is clearly just a simple line. Okay, you put it out there, okay, you put it out there. You're not getting on social media, you're not getting into commentary, you're not getting arguments on the rabbit hole or the what's up Ripon. Defending your position and suggesting that, I know this because I work here and I do that and I interact with so-and-so and I know that. All that is where this leads, okay? So this is more of a guide. Again, as Adam said earlier, we're not looking
Right.
for this primarily, but you can be put in situations where people make it their mission to say, this is what I want, to get out to the public, and I can do it any which way I want. And then they get connected to the department or the clerk's office or whatever, and pretty soon we've got a problem. That's a guideline. It's guidelines.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the handbook? One last time, any further discussion on the handbook? Hearing none. Motion is to approve the amendments to the City of Ripon Employee Handbook with the amendment made to 604F this evening. 605? That right here?
Yeah, 605F.
605? With the amendment made to 605F. All those we're going to do a roll call vote. All those in favor of approving the amended handbook, say
we get a roll call.
roll call.
Iverson? Yes.
Answer the roll call.
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Gallops?
Yes.
Bernert?
Yes.
Godsky?
No.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Split?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you. And thank you to staff. That was a very large lift.
I see Craig's in the audience. Maybe he wants to just highlight Ellen's question, if we could go back to that.
So just an update for you, Craig. We did approve your application, but Ellen did have a question on wristbands.
I was just asking that if the bartender's wristband and ID.
Typically, myself
Okay.
does the IDs. Myself and sometimes another volunteer.
Okay.
To be honest, it depends on how busy we are.
Yeah, because best practice is not to have the bartenders do it.
The goal is to wristband everybody who's of legal age.
Oh, okay.
So it's, we're not just wristbanding 18-year-old, or not 18, that's the wrong or 19-year-old, let's go all the way. The goal is to wristband everybody who's getting a product who's of legal age. So it's a little bit more intense.
Good for you. Not really, but it's a nice try.
Right, yes. So Bill, I'll shy away from,
That was it.
yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't want to leave, so it's, I figured I'd just stay, so.
Thank you.
You can leave now.
All right. Left 5 minutes ago.
Thank you, Craig. All right, next item is a resolution for adoption of the Retirement Health Savings Program. Adam?
So in your packet, there's a resolution. This is directly from Mission Square. This sets up the retirement health savings plan as directed in the handbook amendment for sick leave payouts. You can just see a little flyer here. It just gave you a little information on what it is or kind of the overall concept, but essentially this would be a requirement to adopt the program from the Common Council, and then we will execute everything else with Mission Square to set up the program.
I move we accept the resolution for adoption of the Retirement Health Savings Program.
Second.
Been moved by Ellen, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the adoption of the Retirement Health Savings Program, say aye.
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 Opposed? That is approved. All right, project updates and staff reports. Water? No? Police? Naomi?
Just a reminder, the board of review is tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. And hopefully I've got, John, you gonna be there?
Yes.
Jolene? Dave?
No, Howard.
Howard? There was somebody over there.
The guy with the hand.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Jonathan is not gonna be able to be in attendance.
Okay. Adam?
Nothing to report.
All right. I have several appointments to committees this evening. Just take them down the order that they're listed here. First one is a Parks and Rec Committee appointment to a vacant seat. This would be for Jason Kimple. This term runs through April 30th of 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Howard, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Jason Kimple to Parks and Rec Committee, say aye.
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 Opposed? That's approved, thank you. Next is a reappointment of Tiffany Millen. This term would expire April 30th, 2027.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Doug. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of reappointment of Tiffany Millen to Parks and Rec, say aye.
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 Opposed? That's approved, thank you. And last one for Parks and Rec is Jason Mansmith. This would be a reappointment, again, term ending April 30th, 2027.
Motion to approve. Second.
We got the motion by Terry, second by John. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of reappointment of Jason Mansmith to Parks and Rec Committee, say aye.
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 Opposed? Is approved too. Thank you. Next is Plan Commission. This would be an appointment of Mark Denkert to a vacant seat. This term would run through April 30th of 2026.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Jolene. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mark Denkert to the Plan Commission, say aye.
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 Opposed? That is approved, thank you. Moving on to the Police Commission. First one would be a reappointment of Arlo Richter. This term would run through April 30th of 2028.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Doug, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of reappointment of Arlo Richter to the Police Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. And last one is a reappointment of Kevin Rossino. Did I pronounce that right?
Kelly Rosno.
Rosno. This would be a term ending April 30th, 2028.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Doug, seconded by Terry. Any discussion? All those in favor of reappointment of Kevin Rosno to the Police Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Thank you very much. It was a long list tonight. That's all I have. Any comments or future agenda items from council? Ellen?
I would like to, before we begin the budget process, to revisit a development of a program to to somehow discount taxi rides for folks, like a means testing for folks for taxi services. I think there's some programs out there. I think Adam has found some things.
All right. Anyone else? Not, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Doug. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:11. For those on Board Review, we'll see you tomorrow at 3.